Chapter 11. The I Am is the Way. When we consider the many statements that were made by Jesus Christ during his life upon earth, we find that those statements separate themselves into two distinct divisions, and the difference between the two is so marked that we come naturally to the conclusion that they were made in two different states of consciousness. The first division seems to emanate from a consciousness that is almost human, or at any rate so close to the human that we might say that it was human nature in its highest form, giving expression to its thought and feeling. The outer division, however, seems to emanate from a consciousness that is so lofty that we conclude that it is the Supreme that is speaking. The reason why the statements made by Jesus Christ separate themselves into these two divisions is easily explained, because he did possess two distinct forms of consciousness of the human and consciousness of the divine. When we consider the human race, we find that the majority are conscious only of the human, and therefore give expression only to thoughts that are decidedly human. A few, however, among the more advanced in the human family, are developing the consciousness of the divine, and many are learning to understand this consciousness more and more, so that there are moments when we reach such a high and such a fine state of realization that we almost feel as if the wisdom of the divine were thinking in us or speaking through us. The greater part of the time, however, we are conscious only upon the human plane, and are chiefly concerned with the manifested side of existence. With Jesus it was different, because he had developed the higher spiritual side of his life, and therefore could live consciously, and in fact absolutely, both in the human and in the divine. He could, when he so desired, come down into the life of the human personality, although his human living was indeed of a very high order. Then at other times he would ascend to such heights of spiritual wisdom and power that his words were indeed expressions of the eternal I Am. And one of the most remarkable of those expressions is this: I am the way, the truth, and the life. In considering this statement, we are referred to a corresponding statement that appears earlier in sacred literature, that is, be still and know that I am God. Or paraphrased, might read, be still and know that the eternal I Am is God. And indeed, the eternal I Am is the way, the truth, and the life. We know that it is the eternal I Am that is in reality God. The term I Am being but another term for the divine, the supreme, the most high, and therefore we can readily appreciate the great statement, I am the way, the truth, and the life. We must remember that the I Am, which indeed is the way, the truth, and the life, does not dwell exclusively in any one personality. The I Am may find expression through any personality, and indeed does dwell in the soul of every human being. The eternal I Am is enthroned in the spiritual life of every individual soul, and when we enter into the perfect stillness of the soul, the peace that passeth understanding, the peace that does pass understanding, because in that state there is no understanding large enough or wonderful enough to measure the peace we realize. It is in that state of peace, which is above reason, which is above ordinary mental activity, which is even above what we usually call thinking, where we may know or discern the presence of the I Am. When we are in that peace, we are in absolute light, and we do not really think about anything, for the truth is that when we are in the light we know. It is not necessary to think there in the usual sense of that term, because we know, and here let us remember that there is a marked distinction between thinking and knowing, and between understanding and realization. The process of thinking is a process through which we create thoughts about something that we are trying to understand. But when we know, then we do not have to try to understand or create temporary thoughts about what we are seeking to know. When we know, then the mind is in a state of illumination and dwells serenely in the perfect realization of the great spiritual light. We understand, therefore, that when we are in the peace that passeth understanding, we are above actual mental activities. We are in a state where all these things are felt and realized as absolute states of being. And it is in that realization that we become conscious of the presence and the power of the eternal I Am. If we should try to define the I Am to objective intellect, we might liken the I Am to a great white light enthroned in the soul, and giving expression to its wisdom and power through those higher states of consciousness into which we enter when we are in the glory and light of the soul world. We realize, therefore, that when we ascend into our consciousness, higher and higher into our own spiritual being, we draw near and near to the great white light that exists upon the spiritual height of that realm in which the soul forever dwells serene. When we enter into this lofty state, we meet a wonderful experience, and it is this: that as we become conscious of the light and the presence of the great white light, we enter into a measure into that light, and we feel that we are so perfectly in it, that light, that we partake of the consciousness of the eternal I Am. In brief, we feel as if we have become one with the I Am, and can actually make the same great statement, I am the way, the truth, and the life. In a measure this is true, because we all are one with the I Am in spirit, and when we become conscious of that sublime unity, we partake of the same wisdom and the same power, and also become channels, so to speak, through which the Most High may speak the word of eternal truth. The statement that my Father and I are one illustrates this same experience, because every human entity, spiritually speaking, is one with the Supreme, and when this oneness becomes a reality in consciousness, the infinite does speak through us, or we give expression to what is in reality the Word of God. The eternal I Am is individualized in every soul, and therefore we can say that the I Am in ourselves, that is, the great white light of the soul, does constitute the gates ajar in our own spiritual being to the way, the truth, and the life. What is more, we find that it is the consciousness of the I Am in our own spiritual existence that constitutes the only secret path to that lofty state wherein we find the way, the truth, and the life. We cannot find the way, the truth, and the life through any external source, not even through the personality of Jesus or through the personality of any extraordinary soul that might have appeared or that may appear upon earth. The secret path to the way is found only in our own interior consciousness of the I Am individualized in us, or our own spiritual consciousness of the great white light enthroned in the secret realms of our own soul. If we would find the way, we must become conscious of the I Am in ourselves, and it matters not how we may proceed, what system or thought or religion we may follow. Those things are of secondary importance. The one thing of supreme importance is that we have this great object in view in every effort, or study of life, to become conscious more and more of the I Am, the supreme spiritual light reigning supremely within our own spiritual kingdom. When our attention is concentrated entirely upon that goal, it does not matter what we may call ourselves or what systems of thought we may follow. If we all have that goal, we all are moving in the same direction, and we all are realizing an ever-increasing measure of that great light into which we must someday enter perfectly, and therefore meet face to face the I Am, the Infinite, the Most High. It is the truth that so long as we will have that lofty goal in view, our minor differences are of no importance whatever, and therefore we should lay them all aside and try to serve each other more perfectly, so that we may rise in the scale of consciousness to the far greater degree than ever before. Thus we shall gain more and more of that wisdom and realization that constitute the key to the mansions of freedom, of truth, and of light. Where the human race has erred in the past is this, that we have sought the way, the truth, and the life through the existence of some personality instead of seeking it through the consciousness of the I Am in our own spiritual kingdom. And the race is also mistaken in trying to gain spiritual power through various external methods or by means that are not identified with the consciousness of the great white light within our own spiritual existence. That is, we have gone out on bypath, so to speak, and have sought wisdom and power through various external sources, thinking that we might climb up some other way. But there is only one way, and the I Am is the way. The consciousness of the I Am enthroned in our own spiritual kingdom. The more spiritual we become, the more perfectly we realize that those who try to seek spiritual power or wisdom through any other source than through the consciousness of the I Am are trying to climb up some other way. And Jesus did make some very strong statements in that regard, emphasizing in no uncertain terms the uselessness of such a course. When we study history, especially the spiritual side of history, we discover that those who have tried to seek spiritual power in some other ways have invariably come to grief, and they have in all ages been looked upon as the black sheep of the fold. It is always true that whenever we turn away from the one central path and try to gain higher power in some other way, we enter into a state of living that becomes more or less uncanny. In other words, we become abnormal, both mentally and physically, and the world tends to shrink from us, feeling instinctively that we are on the wrong path, and therefore will have nothing to do with our doctrines or our personalities. The world as a whole may be more or less in the dark, but humanity does instinctively feel whether an individual is on the path of the pure white light, or is living on one of the bypath, which is indeed a violation of spiritual law. and no one can violate spiritual law without surrounding himself with an atmosphere that is repulsive to sensitive human souls. On the other hand, it does not matter what our religious beliefs may be, if we are sincere in that connection and do proceed with the one lofty purpose in view, that is, to find the spiritual light within ourselves, seeking that light neither through signs and manifestations, nor through the study of the psychical, the occult, or the mystical, but proceed directly and sincerely through the highest light of spiritual consciousness that we may have. If we proceed in that manner, there is something about us that the world invariably regards with respect. And even though the world may disagree with us in measure, still there is a feeling on the part of the world that we are sincere, and that we are seeking the highest good. In brief, the world discerns intuitively that we are on the right path, and that our consciousness of the light, as far as we have gone, is the consciousness of the pure white light. We shall find a marked difference in all our efforts when we make this our supreme purpose, that is, to become more and more conscious of the eternal I Am, enthroned in our own spiritual kingdom. And when we follow Jesus Christ, we do so, not in the sense of depending upon his personality, or expecting to gain anything through his personal existence, but we follow him in the sense that he revealed in his life and his wonderful teaching, the secret path to the sublime consciousness within ourselves, through which we may find the I Am, which indeed is the way, the truth, and the life. We can readily understand that the consciousness of the I Am, as outlined above, must necessarily constitute the true way, because when we are looking for the way, we are looking for the path that leads into higher states of consciousness, into great spiritual wisdom, into the illumined state, and into the conscious possession of that sublime power that will enable us to understand life, to make life as rich, as high, as beautiful, as wonderful, and as ideal as a true spiritual life can and will be made. When we become conscious of the I Am, we become conscious of the light of wisdom and truth. We become conscious of that higher power that exists inherently in every human soul. And we know that whatever we become conscious of, that will manifest in mind and body. When we ascend into higher realization of the same consciousness, we find that the mind will go higher and higher into the light, into the wisdom and into the power, and thus we find those very things that do indeed constitute the way to the Christ consciousness, the Christ life, and the life of sublime unity with the Most High. We also realize that the same consciousness of the I Am must indeed be the truth, because the light of the I Am is the light of the eternal, and it is the pure white light, the light that reveals the absolute truth, and truth of all in all. In like manner, we understand how this same consciousness of the I Am, within our own spiritual kingdom, must reveal to us the life we seek, the life eternal, the glorified life, the spiritualized life, the life more abundant, the life that is, was, and evermore shall be. We knew that the nearer we draw in consciousness to this deeper, higher state of spiritual being, the more fully we realize the existence and the expression of the life that is real life, and therefore our growth in that consciousness must necessarily be followed by larger expressions of all that abides within that life. We all have experienced, while in silent moments, something in this connection that illustrates clearly the idea that we are here have in mind. While resting in those silent moments, we have felt something wonderful within ourselves, within the kingdom of the soul, inspiring the mind to take wings so that we have arisen to those sublime states of realization, where we have felt the presence of a power and a life that we knew at once to be the life and power of the Spirit. This life and power thrilled every atom of our being, and we felt as if we were surcharged with a living essence that could not be otherwise than immortal and eternal. It is in that state that we have become conscious of the life more abundant, for in truth, a great influx of high spiritual life has entered consciousness, mind, and personality, sometimes to such a high degree that we are literally overwhelmed with glory and power from on high. It is in this experience that we fully realize the meaning of the great statement, "I came that ye might have life, and that ye might have it more abundantly." For the truth is that when the I Am comes into consciousness, or in other words, when we ascend in consciousness so that we meet the presence of the I Am in us, it is then that this wonderful influx of spiritual life appears in our own being. When we touch the I Am within ourselves, we naturally receive the greater life of the I Am, and we always touch the I Am within when we enter into the spiritual consciousness of the I Am. The same great truth is emphasized by the statement, "Follow me," because we must follow the Christ or the Christ consciousness if we would enter into this wonderful realm of spiritual illumination. But it is not the personal man or the personality of Jesus that we are to follow. It is the great light that the Christ revealed that we are to follow, and we follow that light when we consecrate thought upon the marvelous spiritual within, and seek the kingdom of God in our own interior life and soul. The one thing of importance to be considered herewith is this, that we may find the way, the truth, and the life only through the inner consciousness of the I Am, that sublime expression of the Most High that is enthroned in every soul. The I Am is the great eternal light centralized in the soul and enthroned in the spiritual kingdom of every individual soul. We must look to that light, consecrate attention upon that light, and never try to find the secret path in some other way. We must enter through the door of the I Am, and we do enter through the door of the I Am when we become conscious more and more of the life, the power and the spirit of the eternal I Am existing within our own spiritual being. Every moment that we might spend in trying to secure these things in some other way is so much time and effort lost. We realize, therefore, that we all might advance wonderfully, both in mind and spirit, and rise remarkably in the scale of existence, if we would give every attention to this one sublime source. Our purpose in the future must be to consecrate attention upon the real door of the Spirit, the consciousness of the I Am, and seek the way, the truth, and the life, through the spirit of the I Am, as it is upon the heights of our own spiritual world. And to this end we must learn to understand the great statement, "Be still and know that I am God," for the eternal I Am is indeed God. When objective thought or objective reason is still, it is then that the soul may ascend into that calm, serene attitude, in search of the light in its purity, in search of the peace that passeth understanding, in search of supernal heights, in search of the great white light. And when all these things are found, then the soul does find the way, the truth, and the life. The soul does meet in reality the radiant countenance of the Christ, the glorified presence of the Most High. End of chapter.